Next speaker is Mr. Leroy Alloway, and he serves as the Director of Community Development for the Alamo Regional Mobility Authority. It's a local entity responsible for improving mobility by accelerating transportation projects and deliver congestion relief and enhance the economic vitality of the region. Please welcome Mr. Alloway.
For those of you who may not have heard of the Alamo RMA until the stories in the paper the last few days, and including the story in today's Express News, let me reassure you that work continues to move forward on building the 281-1604 interchange, and we continue to move forward with preparing and finalizing the environmental impact statements to bring relief to US 281 from Loop 1604 to Borgfield, and on 1604 from US 90 to I-35 north by the Forum. We're looking at approximately 43 miles, give or take, of added capacity roadway. It's a potential $2 billion infrastructure project for the community. We're also working on, in cooperation with the Texas Department of Transportation, the initial stages of environmental clearance for I-35 from FM 1103 into downtown San Antonio. We're, again, the very early stages of that environmental document, but conservative estimates place that project itself at about $2.5 to $3 billion, if not higher, for the needed improvements. So let me start off talking a little bit about 281 and 1604, the four southern connectors that are under construction right now. Based on all the modeling that we've done as part of the environmental study for this corridor, these four connectors, when completed, and all the work will be done by late May, early June of 2013, so we're less than a year away from having everything open. These four connectors will provide traffic relief for 55,000 cars a day that will no longer be stopped on surface streets at traffic lights. But here's the number that really matters. And here's the number, especially if you're trying to sell in this area. When these four connectors are built, we will be able to give back to drivers in this area the equivalent of 40 hours a year where they are no longer stuck in traffic. And for those who want the four northern connectors, they are coming. They're part of this. They were approved in the city's bond issue. They're part of the 281 environmental impact statement, and I'll discuss those in a few minutes. But I can say, let's see if this works today. If you're heading 281 north from 1604, maneuver that a lot of people make, today it takes between 8 to 10 minutes during rush hour to make that maneuver. When these connectors are open and done, based on the modeling, it should take you about 45 seconds. So there will be a significant travel time savings through the construction of these connectors. While we've been under contract since March 2010, we officially kicked off construction activities March 2nd, 2011. For those trivia buffs in the audience, that also happens to be Texas Independence Day, and please forgive me for the cheesy statement I'm about to make, but we thought it was fitting that last year on March 2nd, we also declared our independence from congestion in this corridor. So we had a party. We had a high school marching band out there with us. The big rig that you can see behind me on the screen started the first drill shaft. To date, and actually on this project, there are 232 drill shafts that have been put in place. We have extensive protocols in place. If we hit a karst feature, work stops, we bring a biologist in. We're going above and beyond required protections for the aquifer beyond anything that state law requires. We're actually installing a system that will be able to hold, detain, and filter upwards of 95,000 gallons of runoff from the roadway. Compare that to what exists today, where there is a grand total of zero amount of protection at 281 and 1604. So we are trying to be very environmentally friendly in building this project. So what exactly is being built? Well, it's the four southern connectors linking 281 and 1604. Based on the current schedule, by September of this year, we should have one, if not two, of these direct connectors open to traffic. Those would be the connectors heading from 281 north to 1604 east and 1604 west. While you see on the screen that it's a $130 million project, we actually had a $140 million budget for the improvements on the interchange, as well as the auxiliary improvements, ramp reversals, dark sky compliant lighting, putting continuous sidewalks the length of the project. We used a procurement called design build, and it's one that's gotten some flack over the last few years. There's a misconception that by using design build, you're not using low bid. Well, in fact, price is about 70% of the overall score for design build procurement. But the nice part about it is it encourages innovation from our contracting community. Because of the design build procurement, because of the innovation of Williams Brothers Construction Company and Jacobs Engineering, our winning design build consortium, they saved $10 million for the community by making a simple change, and instead of having a left-hand exit from 281 to head 1604 east or west, they moved it into the center of the roadway and made it a instead of a right-hand exit, it's a left-hand exit. That simple change saved $10 million. We didn't have to go buy additional right-of-way at the Northwood Shopping Center that we thought we would need. And we're able to have a guaranteed delivery date for this project, again, the end of May 2013. As of today, construction is 70% completed. We're also going to be widening bridges along the corridor to allow for more through traffic. We're also going to be reversing ramps. One in particular we're going to be reversing. Has anyone ever been on Blanco Road between Cornerstone and the Vineyards on a Saturday or Sunday and thought the traffic was just really light and there was no problem out there? Okay, nobody ever responds positively to that one. We're flipping the ramps on 1604 heading westbound between Stone Oak and Blanco. Specifically, where you exit 1604 today and you come up right on the traffic signals, that's going to become the entrance ramp to 1604. Where you enter 1604 right past the Alzafar Shrine, that's going to become the exit ramp to 1604. So we're going to eliminate a lot of the weaving pattern that's caused the backup there, that's contributed to a lot of the delay. That's part of this project as well. So I always believe a picture is worth 1,000 words, and we're a staff of 9 people. I'll be honest, I don't have the most artistic eye when it comes to photographs, so I need to give credit where credit is due. These are taken by the construction engineer that's overseeing our project. And just to help show you some of the magnitude of what we're talking about with this project, I've already mentioned the 232 drill shafts that we've got. The column you see before you is one of 132 columns that have been constructed for this interchange. We have, and you can see on the screen, the concrete beams that are being put in place. There are over 484 beams weighing upwards of 96,000 pounds. It equates to about 10 miles of concrete beams being put in place. Behind me on the screen, the very dark beams that you see are actually steel. We have 31 steel beams, heaviest weighing 318,000 pounds. All in, there's over 4.7 million pounds of steel being used on this project. And all the steel is being assembled in San Angelo and shipped into San Antonio. What's behind us now is the left-hand exit for 281 north to 1604 east and west. Again, this should be open to traffic around the September timeframe. Now, if you've never seen a project like this being built, and I'll be honest, I hadn't had the opportunity until we started this, watching a steel beam be put in place is a ballet unto itself, for lack of a better term. At the end of each beam is about a 2.5-inch diameter hole. It's lifted into place by a set of cranes to be rested on about 1.5 inch steel bolt on top of the column. When this is set down, there literally is a 1/4 inch on either side of that bolt, and they have to get it right the first time. It is incredibly complicated, but they make it look so easy because the team we have on this is doing such a wonderful job for us. So, given the weight of these beams, it's also one of the reasons why we do have main lane closures happening on the weekends and on the evenings. We don't necessarily want someone driving through an active construction site when there's a 300,000 pound beam being lifted above them. being held up by cranes. No matter how good the crane is, we want to take safety seriously. And if you'll allow me to be a little somber for a moment, on June 4th of this month, we did have, unfortunately, a fatality happen on the project. One of our construction workers who was on one of the direct connectors, for whatever reason, fell to his death. And that has shaken not only the construction team and the RMA, but it serves as a very stark and all too vivid reminder for the community that these projects do have danger associated with them. And so when the crews are in the area, I would strongly encourage you, not only in our project, but on any project, please bear that in mind when you're going through construction zones. Give the construction workers a break, slow your speed down. I know it may be frustrating if you're running late to something, but you're not only being safe for your sake, but also for theirs. And if they're willing to take this type of risk to help invest in our community and build such infrastructure that we're all going to benefit from, the least we can do is show them the respect they are afforded and helping make sure they've got a safe working condition. Again, we've had a number of cranes and operators, crew on the project. We have about 550 people working on this project right now. I'll give you two more stats real quick. We've got over 500,000 square feet of deck surface being poured on the direct connectors, and we've got over 100,000 square feet of retaining walls being built as part of this project. But lest you think this is the only project that the Alamo RMA is working on, though it's the biggest, most visible one right now, and it is changing the landscape in northern San Antonio, we do have other projects that we've got under our purview at this point. 281 Environmental Impact Statement, 1604 Environmental Impact Statement, and you can stay up to date with all of those by visiting the website, alamorma.org. You can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. We have a 2 to 3 times a week electronic newsletter that we put out detailing the major construction closures that are scheduled for the interchange project, what the duration is, why we're doing this work. Encourage you to visit our website and sign up for that. Or if you'd like to receive, when we have, let's say, all the main lanes of 281 southbound closed, for example, if you'd like to receive real-time updates of when the closure is going to start, when it's opening to traffic, we provide that via Twitter text messaging. You can text follow Alamo RMA to 40404 and be able to receive that update on your smartphone as well. I do have to throw the disclaimer out. Normal carrier rate charges may apply. If you don't have an unlimited text messaging program, you may want to invest in that. We already actually did have people call and screaming at us because we had sent their text message over the limit, providing the updates that the road's closing in 20 minutes, the road's closing in 5 minutes, the road's now closed. So no good deed goes unpunished. At least that's the lesson that they keep trying to tell me.
We're realtors, most of us have.
Perfect. So what you're seeing on the screen are the 3 environmental projects that we're also working on. I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking briefly about 281, about 1604, and then about 35, and be able to take any questions you may have. For 281, we have a website dedicated to the environmental impact statement, 411 on 281.com. If you sign on, you can visit the 3 alternatives that are currently in our draft environmental impact statement and be able to actually see the proposed schematics at this point, what this could mean for your clients, both commercial and residential. You can also see all the material we've presented, not only at public meetings, but also to our community advisory group and our peer technical advisory committee. In the last couple of days, actually on Monday, June 25th, the San Antonio-Bexar County Metropolitan Planning Organization approved putting money forward to provide some non-toll capacity on 281. And it doesn't solve the entire project, but what it does is provide from 1604 to just north of Stone Oak. We'll have continuous frontage roads, and while we recognize the 25-year need for capacity says we probably need 3 lanes in each direction of continuous traffic flow, this provides funding for 2 non-toll main lanes in each direction, and then a center toll managed lane. If you've been on the Katy Freeway and I-10, it's similar to the concept we're talking about. transit will ride for free. Military and first responders will ride for free. And if you're a registered carpool, and there's a significance of that statement, a registered carpool, you will ride for free. Everyone else, if you choose to use that roadway and use that center lane, will pay a toll. Now, the reason we're saying a registered carpool instead of saying HOV 2+ or 3+ riding for free is it becomes a cost issue and it becomes an enforcement issue. On I-10 in Katy, you've got people stationed at the declaration spots where you drive through, I'm a single occupant vehicle and I'm going to pay a toll, or I'm a 2+, 3+ in the car and I'm going to ride for free. There are randomly times people sitting in a booth counting the number of people in the vehicle. And if you ride through and you're a single occupant, but you went through the HOV lane, they dispatch law enforcement to let you know that you made a mistake and here's your fine for doing that. That becomes time and money intensive. So when we're looking at the technology that could be available, there's some promising research from around the world. Some of it has some drawbacks. For example, one system that we've heard about that could accurately detect how many people are in the car based on skin and heat sensitivity, uses some infrared technology. But the drawback we've heard to it is it could make you sterile. So we don't necessarily want to encourage that. So that's why we're looking at a registered carpool. The technology simply hasn't caught up yet with the ability to accurately depict and determine how many people are in the vehicle, and not wanting to be an empire building organization and employ hundreds upon hundreds of people to sit in a booth. We're looking at a way you could use a transponder in your car that you could switch on and off to say, today I'm a carpool, this afternoon I'm not. There will be an honor system involved with it, but it is the concept that's being explored. Now, north of Stone Oak to Borgfield Road, the main lanes that are being proposed would be 3 toll managed lanes in each direction, and then non-toll frontage roads up until Borgfield. The reason we're looking at this combination is we have to have a fiscally constrained plan. We have to be able to show how we're going to fund the entire project. Even if it takes 5 to 10 years to build, we have to know how we're going to fund the entire project. The 281 project is estimated to be about $500 million, including the 4 non-toll direct connectors on the northern part of the interchange. With that money and the money from the MPO, we still have about $330 million that has to be found to be able to complete the project. At this point in time, in the absence of any other type of revenue, we are looking at toll financing. On 1604, we have a similar situation. Now, if you're driving on 1604 today and you're heading west, you get to about Bandera Road, and that nice main lane expressway with frontage roads suddenly stops and becomes just like 281 North. A non-controlled access facility with traffic lights and traffic backup. As part of the MPO plan they approved on Monday, money has been programmed to go from Bandera Road down to Petrenko and make that section look just like the rest of 1604. Frontage roads and 2 main lanes in each direction that are non-toll with overpasses. But again, the challenge becomes we have to look at a 25-year horizon. On 1604, we know in the last census, from US 90 to I-35, outside of 1604, we saw a 233% population increase. Over 100,000 new residents moving into that area. If you listen to the Northside Independent School District, for example, and their demographic forecast, from I-10 to 151 outside of 1604, they anticipate a city the size of Corpus Christi being developed in the next 15 years. The 151, 1604 area, Westover Hills, when it's fully developed, should be twice the size of Stone Oak. So we know growth is coming out there. And I use all of those to say, in our environmental impact statements, we have to plan for that 25-year growth. So 2 non-toll main lanes in each direction may handle the capacity demand we have today. But as we're looking forward, there's going to be additional lanes needed. And so the plan at that point would be that those additional lanes would then have a toll component attached to them. We'll get 2 non-toll main lanes built from Bandera down to Petrenko, but any additional capacity in that section, as well as along 1604, would have the toll managed lane component attached to it. We're looking at approximately $1.3 to $1.5 billion of needed infrastructure for 1604. And we're still undergoing, just as 281, the environmental impact statement. So there is always the possibility that at the end of the day, we could have a recommendation that some sections of this corridor have what's called a no build, that we take no action and provide no improvements, either based on a lack of available funding or for any number of reasons, environmental being just one of the many. And I said I would talk a little bit about 35. We've been engaged in a planning and environmental linkages study. It's kind of putting your toe in the water before you start the full environmental assessment. We've been working on that with TxDOT since last summer. We should be wrapping that study up here in the next few weeks, and it will at least forward some concepts that need to be evaluated in further detail, looking at the entirety of the I-35 corridor, again from 1103 into downtown San Antonio. We're probably a couple years away from having environmental clearance completed on that corridor and being able to look at what the financial needs would be to bring improvements and bring relief. But the reality is, at the end of the day, and please, if someone feels differently, please help prove me wrong, no one wants their property taxes to go up. We have a pittance, I say pittance, we have a small portion of sales tax left that will probably be on the November ballot for a brain power initiative, which education, of course, being essential to our community, but at the same time, that's the last little bit of sales tax that could be spent on infrastructure or other items. So we'll be capped out like the rest of the state. We can look at bonds, but if you look at the city of San Antonio's last bond issuance of almost $600 million with no property tax increase, you have to be able to build the capacity and pay down prior debt to be able to issue that a next round of debt. So maybe a 5 to 7 year period before we can do another $600, $700 million worth of bonds. Or we can do a traditional pay-as-you-go. We save the gas tax money up, and we build a little bit of road as we save money. I told the story yesterday, and I'll show my age. About a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, we celebrated 30 years of continuous improvement on Loop 410. 30 years. What it hit me when we were doing that celebration is I was a year old when we started improvements on Loop 410. For my entire life, 410 has been under construction in some form or fashion. I truly hope that my children do not have to have the same experience on 1604 or on 281. So we can do a pay-as-you-go system. It's worked. We took 10 years to build 410 and I-10, or we can do bond financing and pay it back with a dedicated revenue source, such as tolling, and be able to get a project built quickly like 410 and 281, or 1604 and 281 is being done today. I know tolling isn't a popular concept. I'm not standing up here jumping for joy that we have to consider tolling. But when you look at over the last 5 years, we've put close to $200 million of new infrastructure on the ground, and we're celebrating that. And you compare it with Austin, who in the same time period has put close to $5 billion of new infrastructure on the ground because they've made use of toll revenue and toll financing to build added capacity. And you look at what Gil presented, talking about the impact of Eagle Ford Shell and the diversification of our economy locally. We have to start changing our mindset of how we paid for infrastructure and how we're developing our community, or we're going to quickly fall behind the curve. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. I do want to encourage you, visit our website, visit the 281 specific, visit the 1604 specific, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and by all means, if you've got any questions, I'm glad to help answer those. Yes, sir.